My name is Jonathan Parks, and welcome to Jonathan's Nature Crafts. I must inform you that I do not live in this house by myself, but live here with other people. Sometimes other members of the household may have to walk through areas where I might be recording with other family members on the phone. If you hear any noise like that, please feel free to disregard. We are doing our best to get noise-canceling equipment, which may at least keep you from hearing exactly what is being said. Thank you for considering. As some of you all may come to note, for the last few days of my life, I've had quite the adventures. That's kind of the reason I just hadn't been on to record much for the past few days, and kind of got my last upload done fairly recently and told you all some things, but do want to kind of take a little moment to introduce you all to some little furry friends I have. Now, one thing I'll kind of first of all mention to you all is that, first of all, I do not hunt. Second of all, I do not trap. I did not kill anything myself to get any of this. I buy the fur pelts online off of Etsy to make these things out of. But I will tell you all one thing I do here, and I'll introduce them to you, but I'd say the first of the creatures I ever did that with was this beaver pelt, which I purchased online and used some broadcloth to make its underside and kind of just use it as a little pillow to snuggle in the night. Kind of use the fur just to kind of pet it down. I mean, I'll tell y'all before I go too far that it's like when I was a kid, for example, you know, I always wanted real animal fur. I'd make my Christmas and birthday lists and put it on there, and there was really nowhere to go to buy that stuff in my days, at least not in anywhere near where we were. And I tell you, it was like, that was something my mother and grandmother used to tell me, and I mean, and I've just learned since then how they get so expensive that you couldn't have afforded to buy me much of anything else if you had gotten them for me as gifts as a kid. So that's kind of one reason I sort of come on, just to share a little thought with you all about just how it is and how these things came to be. And even among other things, you know, my siblings and other kids told me, they were like, why do you want an animal fur? They had to kill some animal to get it. Well, they probably kill something for you to eat meat too, unless you're a vegan. And I come by to say that there's been a couple more things. I mean, the second one I made was this muskrat, where I was able to sew the back up a little bit. Didn't have to use any broadcloth there, but did have to patch up its mouth with a little broadcloth here. And the beaver and the muskrat kind of came without their tails, but that was good for me. And most of these furs just kind of hang on my walls. There's probably more of them I'm going to bring down and show sometime sooner or later, but these are kind of just the things, the ways I have them now. And of all things I try to remember as far as what I made, it was like I kind of made this mink here. Of course, there's also kind of a creature called a marten that is similar to a mink. There are marten birds and there are marten mammals. I've got the furs to the martens still hanging on my walls, and you know, and a mink is similar to an otter too. I have an otter fur hanging on my wall too. So some of these I've just had for a long time. And one thing I'll kind of mention to you all is that minks, otters, skunks, badgers, weasels, stoats, wolverines, all of which are creatures I have little furs of, are all members of the weasel family. So that was what was so good about having them. And of course, there's a little more to share to come later on, but I'd say that I also kind of got three pelts of squirrels. In my little cabinet over there, I have like a stuffed gray squirrel and a stuffed red squirrel, both of which I decided to use some flora wire to attach to logs after I stuffed them. So that's where they stay in that cabinet for display, along with a couple of weasel furs that I have over there, and happen to have those because the first one I just purchased by itself, and the second one I got, there was a rare find of a spotted skunk on there. The spotted skunk is still on my wall, though I'll be showing you the striped skunk here in a little bit. But the only chance I had to buy that spotted skunk was to buy the little stoat or weasel fur along with it, so, or the ermine, whatever you call it, that was what I got with it. But we were talking about squirrels, so here is my fox squirrel. Since I had the pelt for the fox squirrel, I sort of patched it up with blue broadcloth in the back and pink broadcloth in the front, just to kind of show how that is. And of all things, there's also this striped skunk I told you all about. Now, for most of these furs, I've kind of used a little bit of a black fabric paint to make their eyes, and as you can probably see on the most of these, and then it comes down to where with this I decided to use a little blue to do it, maybe thinking the blue would be a little something unique, and I used some white to make its back and its mouth, and I say that this little work shall come along. And I tell you all that there was a fox and a coyote I made along the way. The fox was the first pelt that I ever purchased, but you know, these were the biggest two I had, so I decided to stuff them, and even before that would sometimes take the pelts unstuffed into my bed and kind of snuggle up to them like they were living dogs. And you know, I don't like to assume the responsibility of having real pet dogs, so, you know, for me it was just kind of better to have these furs of these wild dogs. It's illegal to have to sell taxidermy of domestic dogs and cats, although I will say some people, if your own cat or dog that's domesticated dies, you can get a taxidermy made for yourself, but you can't legally sell them in the United States, at least according to what I read on a Google search, that is. But when I kind of made out the fox's eyes, I kind of used a little blue at first, but the eye holes were so big that that couldn't cover it, so I kind of used some purple to kind of go around it, and decided to use orange to make the coyote's eyes, since it's kind of a little interesting, more creature that way. I sort of used a little blue for its mouth, and I did not actually sew up its backside because there was just such a gape of skin in there, so small it didn't really have to be patched up. And I'd say when it came to this fox, I of course used pink for its mouth, and instead of sewing it up in the back, I just glued its two legs together with super glue. That's kind of what I use for a lot of my woodworking stuff when I do it. And there's just kind of something I like to say about these snuggle buddies. I mean, you know, these are kind of like, you know, some of my adult stuffed animals. You know, even as an adult, I've had some of my stuffed animals from when I was a kid and still slept with them on the bed because they were just kind of little things, you know, I liked and were little buddies. But I'd say a lot of those, you know, we've already kind of given them to Goodwill and Salvation Army, thinking somebody might need them more. And since buying these pelts, these kind of became my new fur buddies, and just the kinds of ways you can kind of pet on them like they're real creatures, and especially the fact that you can do it with a stuffed beaver just makes me think of a time when I kind of volunteered in a little wildlife place, and there was a little beaver that you could put out your hand and it would kind of come up to your hand, but if you tried to pet it like this, it would kind of move around and squeal, kind of showing you that it didn't like that, which, no surprise, because it's a wild animal. And there's all these things where, you know, I make myself all these creatures and like to show just what they are to people. And I'd say it's just a time when I get on for the moment just to kind of tell you all some things, because it's pretty hard right now to really get around, except on the weekends, to really doing much of a video of anything and carving and work, because even at my school cafeteria job, it's getting kind of hectic in there and a little busier. I'm having a little more work to do because we get a little short-staffed, and sometimes I just have little different tasks to do. Sometimes it gets a little out of my routine, makes me a little tired. So it kind of gets hard to really come on and share a whole lot. And I say that there's been a video before where I've shown this coyote and fox before, where I started that series on the little carving about the coyotes and that I did out of wood. But for this video here today, there's just so much I'd like to say and to share, and appreciate the fact that you all come on to hear little things, and just to kind of keep the channel going and keep the time running, I decided to come on here and show you all these things and how I do them and what I do, and just for little purposes like that. Sometime I might get on and show some pillows I'm making out of little pieces of fur and patch that I kind of get online and get, and just wanted to say that I can always hope for any of you all to come on, see anything, hear anything, learn anything. And one day I hope that I might be able to do a video where I can kind of demonstrate a little bit more as to how I really patch these things up and stuff them with the same polyester stuffing that I make for all my little plush toys that are just kind of like, I'd say, out of the denim and all, like you've seen me do. And people can find it a little bit hard to believe that I can have these kinds of stuffed animals like this, but it's just something I kind of like to get on and show, just to tell you all a little bit more about my work and my hobbies and my interests and all the little ways in life that I have of showing all I can do. And I will tell y'all that there's kind of reasons in my life as to why circumstances can be a little different for me, making it so I have the money to do all these things. And I will have so much more to share as I come on in the future. Hopefully sew up a few more of these animals, stuff a few of them, more of them up, kind of show you all a little bit more about my hobbies and deeds and all the things that are here to show. So, thank you for tuning in. Wish you the best always. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. I hope to see you in the next video. Stay tuned.